Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Desteni I Process Live Google Hangout. I'm Christina and I'm your host, and this week we are continuing from the last hangout we did, which was with Anna and Maya, and we have started that hangout. We started a new series about practical self-empowerment and looking specifically at the processes individuals have walked to implement self-empowerment within their life and how they did that practically. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about understanding your mind within the Desteni community. We look a lot and talk a lot about understanding our minds and our thoughts and what exists within that. And here we're going to talk a little bit about why that's important, why the mind is a focal point for us within the Desteni process in terms of understanding what we're thinking, what our emotions and feelings are, and where that stuff comes from. With me I have Darryl Thomas, who is coming from Houston, Texas, and he's going to talk a little bit about this with us. And we're really glad to have him here because today is his birthday, so thank you, Darryl, for being here on your birthday.
Thank you, Christina.
We're going to be talking for about 40 minutes, so for those of you that know, we have the Google Plus page Q&A app where you can come and ask questions or share perspective or insight if you'd like. So you just go to the Google Plus page. You have to be signed into a Google Plus account. If you're watching from the YouTube page, you're going to want to click on Be a Part of the Discussion, which is right in the video player there, and that will take you to the Google Plus page. So like I said, we're going to be talking for about 40 minutes, so keep that in mind and get your questions in if you have them. So we're going to start, Darryl, with just telling us a little bit about, you walked with the Desteni group in the process for quite a while, so why don't you tell us about what you've come to understand about your mind and why it's important from your perspective. What have you seen is the value in understanding your mind?
That's a really good question. We talk about the mind significantly, and I think one of the biggest hurdles I personally had to get over was not to have such an adversarial relationship with the mind. I think at first when we were challenged with dealing with our mind, dealing with the natures of our thoughts, we tended to want to view the mind as the enemy or view the mind as an obstacle towards self-empowerment or self-realization, and that really isn't the case. We think we are better served if we understand our relationship within the being, mind, and body trinity, as it were, and understanding how to get it to operate not only at a premium functional level, but in a way that fosters common sense and fosters a clearer understanding of who we are in any given moment, and allows us to make the choices that are best for us and best for all. So in that case, that instance, understanding the mind is very, very important, because if you don't understand how your mind operates or what goes into the standard operating system, as it were, you're going to make bad decisions, bad choices. You're going to rely more on your feelings. You're going to rely more on your beliefs and opinions instead of seeing what's in front of you with a clear vision. And we've all made a lot of mistakes and bad choices due to faulty perception on our part, due to not weighing everything out in a very clear way, and just really once your mind gets going on down a track, it's very hard to take a step back and say, wait a second, I'm having all these thoughts about something and it's making me angry, or it's making me happy, or it's making me elated, or it's making me sad, and when we make decisions under that kind of influence, it usually turns into a bad thing. So we want to understand our mind and how it affects our body, and we want to know how that affects our relationships with each other, and other people, other groups, and just in the intrapersonal relationships we have, like with ourselves and with others around us. So that's why it's very important to not view the mind as an adversary or something to be left behind, but actually make friends with it, understand it, make it an ally so we can better understand our experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I recall that too when I first started looking at, started reading about Desteni and certain principles and tools that we have to work with. I saw, one thing that was really interesting was how much I existed within my mind in terms of my thoughts and memories and future projections and all this kind of stuff was constantly going on. I had no idea how much time I was actually spending there. And then also that point of how much I was actually missing because I was spending so much time in my mind, like how much of a reality is actually around me and within me, in terms of not even knowing how my physical body functions, how, I influence or interact with other people, and how much, I had no idea how much my mind influenced that. And even that point of not having an awareness of how much I was spending time in my mind, that was still influencing my relationship with other people. So it's like, where was I? It's like I'm constantly in my mind thinking, and that has an effect on my relationship with people, that I am like nowhere to be found in terms of actually making a decision and a directive, having a direct role in what's going on. It's like this complete unawareness happening. So yeah, that's really interesting. Can you give us an example of a moment when you've seen that kind of direct influence in terms of how the nature of your thoughts influenced certain relationships or interactions you've had with people?
Well, I shared this with you before, but there was a point of time, a long period of time in my life where I wasn't even aware of the nature of my thoughts. I did have I would suppose you could call it an inner mental landscape where I existed in which I kept, as a secret from other people. I don't know if you've ever seen the television show Peep Show. It's a British television show where these two characters have these internal monologues, and they're usually the exact opposite of what they're, telling the other person.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I really hate this job. I really hate this job, thinking. And then they'll say, oh, I really love this job, and they always get in trouble because they are following the impulses in their minds, and always gets them into trouble because then they can't match what the reality of the situation is. So it was sort of like that, I felt like the relationships I had were mental relationships, I guess you could say. I mean, they were very superficial. They were very, I don't know. I was kind of distant, I suppose, in my relationships. I was just there just to be with something or to get something out of it, but I wasn't like invested like 100%. I didn't show up with my full expression. I didn't know how to. I wasn't even aware that part of me existed. And how my thoughts influenced my relationships would be, I would have an idea about somebody, whether it was true or not, and I would relate to them based on that idea. And I saw people relate to me based on the idea of what I projected towards them, So it's almost like a double bind where, oh, that person thinks I'm really smart, or that person thinks I'm kind of dumb, or, that person thinks I'm this or that. And then you sort of play up to those things that sort of put you in a, you know, even footing or better standing, but it's not you, you know, it wasn't me. And I just didn't, and I went through my life for decades and decades not knowing who I was really, you know, what I wanted, you know, what kind of relationships that I really wanted. You know, I didn't really know how to, you know, be a leader when that point was, you know, there for me to step into. I didn't know how to, you know, I think most of the time I was very angry at like everything. And, you know, I just didn't have a way to place it, or if I did place it, it would be the wrong person or the wrong thing. And, you know, it's just a mess, you know. So
Yep.
you know, my biggest regret is that there were so many people in my life I could have, you know, that had the potential for me to maximize, you know, the good things in the relationships that I had, you know, and now I'm much more cognizant of that. I don't take, I don't let the fear and the anger sort of like keep me, you know, in a state of where I have to present a false face to just to get through the day. I don't have to do that anymore. I feel like I can be myself. You know, I don't put everything out there willy-nilly, you know. If I'm in a professional situation, I act as a professional person and on that. But I'm not like, you know, my personal relationships with, you know, people who are close to me. I can be myself, you know, and you know, that's one thing being with in the whole Destonian type of living lifestyle, I suppose you can call it. Really, it's a challenge to be yourself without the blockages and the hang-ups, and if you do have those, you know, just get it out in the open so it can be dealt with, because you want to be authentic, you know, you want to be who you really are, because it's too much work and you get lost and you just don't know what you're doing or who you are anymore. So so that's why it's really important to understand like the nature of your thoughts, because I was making really, really bad decisions, but I didn't know why.
Mm-hmm.
I look back and why did I do that? Why did I, you know, go out with this person, or why did I take this job I really didn't like, instead of, you know, doing what I really wanted to do, or, you know, be with somebody I really wanted to be with. You know, because I based it on fear and emotion, opinions, beliefs, instead of, you know, understanding, you know, and this is really, really helpful to understand. It's to understanding your mind. And Sinette recently shared this in one of the self-living videos. She says, what you create is what you experience for yourself, basically. You know? And that's not like the new agey, fluffy, flower hat, spirituality thing. It really does play out. You know, you create your own experience with the nature of your thoughts, and you create your own experience, not through some mental, you know, influencing out in the world, but your behavior is dependent on your beliefs and thoughts and opinions. And if they're all jumbled up and mixed up, that's the kind of life you're gonna have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I could see that clearly in, you know, my past relationships with boyfriends. It was like, inside my mind, I would take one moment of them having a slight glance in another direction towards a female, and I would create this whole reality in my mind about what they were doing, and, you know, just creating this paranoia and jealousy within me. And from that, I would, you know, express such a rage and a bitterness and a spitefulness based on this idea I created according to how I interpreted my partner's behavior. And it's like, I didn't ask them, hey, were you looking at this person for this reason because that's what I'm thinking. I didn't cross-reference what was going on in my mind. I just completely accepted it. And I think that is where the problem comes in terms of us as humans and our society. We've come to just accept ourselves as existent within a mind, and the thoughts and our voices in our head that we define as ourselves. We just accept that that's who we are. We don't realize like there's a whole creation process from birth that is developing those particular characters and personalities, and that acts as the reason we express or behave the way that we do. So it's like the split, you know, separate reality we have in our mind where we interpret reality, and we don't realize that that has an origin within our life in terms of why we get angry at, you know, this person when they say something in this tonality, or why we get jealous that our boyfriend is talking to another female. Like, that all has an origin within our life, and we can actually look and find out where that came from and why we came to define it the way we did. So yeah, I think it's absolutely important also to understand, like, why are you thinking what you're thinking? Where is that thought coming from? Why are you interpreting reality the way that you are? And I think the missing point is that cross-reference. You know, we have billions of people on this planet, and in terms of interpersonal relationships, we can just ask, hey, you know, I'm having this thought. Can you cross-reference this for me? Is this actually real? Because that's another point. It's like we just absolutely accept what's going on in our mind as reality. We don't realize that it's not actually reality. The physical is the real reality, and we're just kind of lost up in our mind. And yeah, I can see, you know, obviously that would create a disconnect in terms of understanding how we create our life.
You know, you sound like a very strict disciplinarian when it came to your relationships, but I mean, but I never really took responsibility, and that's another thing.
Yep.
With Destiny, what is they ask you to take responsibility for your reactions. Stop blaming others for what you think they're doing to you. That took a long time. I'm still getting over that one. I mean, it's like a default reaction. It's like something happens, you blame.
Exactly.
You blame. And then I was like, that person's fucked up because that person, I know what that person's problem is. He's blah, 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 you know? And then you have like that thought, and then that's how you see it, and then that's, it's your creation.
Yep.
You know, but it's like a runaway train, and then you gotta like sort of like, okay, ride out the energetic, emotional energy about, you know, and sort of put the brakes on it. But we're so quick to blame because we believe we are what we are in essence is our emotions and feelings. That's what makes us real and, like, you know, authentic and human. And it's like, whoa.
Yeah, that's actually a really, that's a really cool point in terms of, I saw that also in terms of, in this process of understanding our mind, we've existed before this, so without that point of responsibility. Like, there is no responsibility within who you are as your mind and how that influences you to interact and create your life. And I found that was the outflow consequence of not taking responsibility in terms of understanding your mind, is you're then in a constant point of blame. Like, things are happening to you, and it's just by chance that, you know, you're having to succumb to these certain circumstances, not realizing that, you know, without that understanding of who you are as your mind and how that influences you in your life, you know, without that responsibility, then yeah, it's going to be really easy to blame. So yeah, I definitely agree.
Yeah. So yeah, like, let me just put that back to you. I mean, if we don't understand why it's important to take responsibility for the contents in your mind, all the stuff that's bouncing around in there, you know, not only take responsibility, sort of do an inventory of it,
yep.
You know, which we do in our DIP, you know, and then take an inventory of it to see what the patterns are, because really human beings have a very limited, repeatable systems of thought that goes around in a circle like a hamster, you know, like a hamster on the wheel, blah, 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 blah. The same thoughts, the same patterns, every day in, day out, same things going around. And in a sense, it is kind of easy to find out what's going on in your mind. But then at the same time, nobody really asks you to take responsibility for your own thoughts. It's like a freedom, and liberty, and personal choice where I can think whatever I want. That's how I live my life. I mean, I felt like if I don't want to be with this person, I could just walk away at any time. You know, that was like the attitude. So I mean, how would I form an effective relationship? Because I was what I created. I created separation with a starting point of a back door being available to me in any given moment. And once I had enough, I was gone. So how could I build a solid, stable relationship? You know, you can't. You can't be a failure and expect success, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is interesting how so many relationships do end up with that point of, well, it's not working out because of my partner in some way, when, you know, we're not willing to just look at, okay, well, where is my participation in my thoughts and the nature of my thoughts? How is that actually influencing my change of heart? You know, and it is interesting. And I know you've talked a little bit about the difference in terms of beginning of a relationship versus the end of the relationship. So can you talk a little bit about some of the dysfunctional relationships that have played out in your life because of this point of not understanding what was going on in your mind?
That's another good question. The relationships that were, okay, so the relationships I did enjoy the most before my current understanding were ones where the communication was at a decent level, which, you know, I felt, you know, it's accepted, or I could be, you know, basically if the communication was more open than not, I had a lot more, you know, fun, or I could be myself more. But if the communication ever lacked, or if I just like, oh, you know, I can't share this with this person, I better keep it a secret, then you always find things to keep secret, you know, and then you're not, and you have like this deformed state of your shape of your relationship, and you know, it just gets really unwieldy and weird and awkward, and you just want it to get out of it, you know, or you're in that constant state of anger and bitterness, and then, you know, somebody's going to get betrayed or somebody's going to get hurt, and then it's just like, oh, this is corny, I want to get out. And in my instance, the dysfunctions always came about because I didn't take responsibility for the relationship, number one, ever. I always looked at a relationship as something I could, you know, I was free to enter, and I was a free spirit, man. You know, I was like the wind. I could just come and go. So I didn't really get anything out of it, so I didn't put anything in it. I didn't value the relationship. I didn't value communication. I didn't know how to communicate. I didn't have enough belief in myself to believe that who I was as a natural person was sufficient. And that was because I didn't understand who I was. I didn't understand the nature of my thoughts. I didn't understand my own personality. I didn't understand my motivations. I was always in a reactive, calculating, really cynical. I mean, gosh, I look back and go, God, I was cynical, dishonest, blaming, spiteful, secretive, all of these things that go within my relationships. You know, the other person probably thought I was a nice person at first, because that's what I projected, so to be like, oh. And so it's so much harder that way. It's so much harder, and I just don't. And you just accept it as natural because that's all you've bring to the party, basically. And that's all, you know, you bumble from one relationship to another, and that's what you call a life. But, you know, after, you know, manning up and taking responsibility for my, you know, learning how to do it, taking responsibility for my thoughts, the contents of my mind, you know, take responsibility for my emotions and feelings, take responsibility for, you know, looking at myself as the starting point rather than, you know, blaming the other person for any perceived shortcomings. You know, that's hard work too, but it's much more fulfilling. I feel like, you know, I'm more complete than I ever have been. My relationships are better than they ever have been. And, you know, you can't do it on your own. If you're in a relationship with somebody who's not playing by the same rules, it's not going to work.
Right.
Not going to work. You know, you could be in with another Destonian if they're not opened up and, you know, there's not a reciprocal thing going on. It's not going to work. I've seen it not work many times. So it does take two people who agree to be as open and honest, self-honest as they can to, because face it, when you get to somebody and form an intimate relationship, you're going to get their patterns to deal with. I'm going to have patterns they have to deal with. And you have to accept it and learn to forgive and, you know, slowly build like the perfect relationship, you know, out of this pile of, you know, confusion. But it can be done, you know, absolutely done. And I feel like I'm on the right track finally. I've been with my relationship partner for 4 years, and it's, you know, it's been ups and downs, but it's the best relationship I've ever had.
Yeah, I think that it says a lot in terms of, you know, that what you were talking about. You know, you can't really sustain a relationship if what you're presenting is not the same as what's actually going on within your mind. And I think that's where the disconnect and the rift and the conflict comes from, because, you know, oftentimes we're presenting the best version of ourselves in the beginning of a relationship, or just even getting, you know, first meeting anyone, you know, friends, colleagues. You know, we put on the best version of ourselves, but there is that secret mind going on that we're not really looking at or taking, like you said, inventory of. There is one that's going to take precedent over the other. So it's just not. So I mean, to my next question in terms of what are some of the differences you've seen in your relationships with other people since walking process, and since, you know, learning more about your mind and who you are within your mind and the patterns, you know, that are existing within you. What are some of the biggest differences you've noticed?
Well, I have a lot more self-confidence in myself. I am at peace with myself. I don't feel like, oh God, I don't know what's going on with me as much as I used to. It's kind of hard to relate to that person that I was, you know, pre-process. You know, I
Yeah.
come back and sort of see myself in these situations, but as to get it back into that mindset, I mean, some of it's coming back when I'm talking about it now, but it's like, oh, it's like really, it's really different. I think being just embracing the whole concept of self-honesty was a big deal for me. And I said that from that when I first started encountering the Destiny material, was self-honesty. It was just like, what? So it never even occurred to me, like, why wouldn't you be honest with yourself? You know,
Yeah.
what does that really mean? Be honest with, you know, being honest with others, you know, don't cheat, don't lie, blah, 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 you know, to others. But what about yourself? Being honest to yourself, you know, not like I'm a selfish bastard and I'm going to do what I fucking want, and that's, you know, that's all you're going to get out of me. You know, I'm not like a sociopathic way, even though I think some sociopaths have an easier time in life because they just go after what they want. But I'm talking about like me as a normal human being dealing with such an unknown quantity as the concepts of of my mind. Oh my gosh, I was trying to understand the world. You understand? I was trying to understand the world, and I didn't understand I didn't understand myself. I didn't understand what's going on in my head. And so how could I be confident of myself? How could I be, you know, begin with the starting point, you know, of myself as a standing human being in the world, going forth and creating a life that I wanted to create. You know, I tried, but I didn't have like enough confidence to get it done. I tried, but I didn't have enough self-belief, you know, to create it for myself. It was just always something I was looking for out there, you know, or in another dimension, or it's anywhere but here within myself, you know. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I sort of understood that we created our own experience somewhere, but I always took it as like some consciousness, magical carpet ride thing, instead of like understanding how our mind works, why I have the thoughts, why they go into patterns, why they repeat, why do the same things keep happening, you know, different cast of disasters, boom, 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 like a Ferris wheel. It's like, why does that keep happening? And the biggest difference is being able to understand the nature of my thoughts, showing up with my full self, being confident with myself, because, you know, once you understand yourself, once you know yourself, then you can go out and do what you need to do, because you know what you need to do. You know what's right in your mind, you know, I'm using right and wrong, but you know what's like effective in the world. I guess that's what I'm saying. Yeah. You know what's gonna, you know, you are what you create, you know, and that's what I take to heart, and that's what I think the biggest difference in my relationships now is. I want to create better relationships. I don't want superficial relationships. In the past, I did. I don't know why. I thought it was just easier, you know. But now I want to create effective relationships. I want to create relationships that have starting points, self-honesty, mutual, you know, trust, you know, all that good stuff. And all that stuff, what were we always looking for? Self-acceptance. Mm-hmm. It begins with self-honesty, you know? So once you can accept yourself, and I think that's what a lot of problems in people's heads get started. They don't accept themselves because they don't know who they are. How can they accept themselves? How could I accept myself? I didn't know who I was. I didn't understand it. So it's a long process to get to understand, but understand who you are. But it can happen, and I'm a better human being for it.
Absolutely, yeah, and I can see that too in terms of, you know, that lack of confidence can easily be traced back to that lack of understanding of yourself, because if you don't know who you are or why you respond the way that you do or why you react to certain situations, it's like kind of going out, you know, into a battlefield without a loaded gun. Like you know, there's a metaphor there, but I'm not sure what it is. But you know, it's like you're going without any kind of defense, because there's no understanding of, okay, I know who I am in this moment, and I know who I will be in this moment, and you know, without having that understanding of why we exist the way that we do, or without understanding how we can actually change what we are coming to learn about ourselves, then it's really kind of walking without any kind of defense. And And I found that too, that self-honesty was the hardest thing for me to comprehend, yet it seems so simple. Like, and for me, what I found it to be in the beginning was me being self-honest with what was going on in my mind and actually facing the nature of my thoughts, which initially were very spiteful. They were nasty. They were angry. They were like there was envy and jealousy, and I just had all these bitter things going on in my mind. And it's like, to be able to acknowledge that and say, this is what is actually going on in my mind, that to me was self-honesty. And that to me was such an empowering thing, because another point of not having confidence or that anxiety that you might have with other people is because you know what's going on in your mind, but the thought of being open about that and someone else finding out, it's like, what a constant point of stress. It's like, oh my God, I have this secret mind, this hidden reality that I don't want anyone to know about. Like, that was a big point for me, and still is throughout my process, that point of exposing my nature and actually facing and addressing what exists within me, you know, and getting to know where that comes from. But from my perspective, that's where you empower yourself, when you take responsibility. Like, this is me. It's not absolutely who I am. I can change it, and I realize that that's my responsibility, and that is absolutely a possibility, and that's what we do within Desteni in terms of the process that we walk, is that taking that stance to empower ourselves to understand our minds, why it exists the way it does, and then making those changes to correct, you know, what needs to be corrected. So yeah, what would you suggest to anyone who wants to get to know or understand their mind? What are some, you know, beginning steps people can take to start the process of understanding their mind?
Well, they can read my new book, Understanding the Mind. I do have a book with co-written with Andrea, who's on our demons, but available at the e-cafe. Geez, I mean, why you ask me that?
Well, you know, we
read the damn material, I guess.
Read the damn material, yes. There it is. I was fishing for that.
What was your question again?
Well, just, you know, someone who has never come across Desteni before, and they happen to watch our hangout, and they're like, what is this understanding the mind? And I think I might want to know more, because I can relate a little bit to what they're talking about. What would you suggest to someone like that?
Well, you got to go to the Destonian page. You used to have a lot of members sharing their day-to-day life as diaries, and I can guarantee you read about 5 or 6 of them, you're going to say, that's me. I've done that. Oh yeah, I had that exact same thought. I went through that same experience. This person is like, actually, that's kind of cool what that person's doing. So yeah, I would look at the Journey to Life blogs that are being written by a lot of the members. Visit the forum, read it. There's so many articles there. Go to eQuaf, the online bookstore and video store. A lot of free things out there. If you want to support the Desteni movement, you can actually kick in a few quarters and actually purchase some of the materials, but a lot of it's free. And I would say start there. I'm not gonna lie, it's a lot to get through. I think it's done that way by design. So it's because there's so many, people out there with different, starting or entry points into it. Everybody's entry point to Desteni is a little different, but they're all the same. I mean, you're being led to equality and oneness, and something's wrong with the world. There's something that's out of balance, and we all sense that. And it's not to create some fairyland or anything like that, but it's to like get to know who we are, And then when we talk about a process, what is the process of? And we say it's birth, birthing life into the physical, and that is a huge, huge concept. And but that's what we're doing. Life is so misunderstood, and yet it's the only sacred thing that everybody can see and verify that exists. But we don't really. We treat it so cheaply, and we're in danger of losing it forever. So, yeah, that's my short answer. Is I can deliver it, I guess.
No, that's cool. Yeah, absolutely. And I think you touched on it great, that, you know, we all see that there's some imbalance going on and there's something not quite right in this world. And, you know, within Desteni, we realize it's within ourselves and it exists within our minds and who we are and how we live. And that's the process, understanding how we've created this world in its totality through who we are. In each individual, you know, exists the key. And so that's the process. And so very cool. And as Darryl mentioned, we have all the links to the forum and the ecaf.com, where you can access a lot of material and recordings and books and more information. We also have the DIP Lite website, which is a free online course that walks you through a very introductory level of this process that we're talking about, and an introduction to how to understand your mind and how to understand yourself and how to walk the change, as Darryl said, in birthing yourself as life in the physical. So all those links will be in the description box of the YouTube video, so you can have that available to you. Come to the forums if you have questions. The Desteni.org forums, there's a constant movement there happening, people asking questions, perspectives being given, people sharing their writing, their personal process, their personal understandings and insights to daily things that come up in life, in family relationships, in, you know, your relationships with, you know, your marriages, your children, your coworkers, you know, it all exists there, and we all talk about it, and the support is amazing what we have. So come check it out. Any last words from you, Darryl?
Hey, no, I mean, just have a good day, and we'll see you next time.
Yes, thanks again for joining us. Yeah, so check out, on Tuesday we have Relationship Success Support finally back with Cerise and Anna, and that will be on Tuesday. And tomorrow night there is a Desteni movie hangout with Joanna. I think they will be discussing There Will Be Blood. So check that out. You can
good movie.
Yeah, keep an eye out for the Google Plus page. The hangout will be there. So thanks again, Darryl, and thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.
Peace.